So this is the average savings by age group in the UK for the 1st of January 2026. As you can see, for 18 to 24 year olds, the average savings is £4,759. For 25 to 34 year olds, it's £9,357. For 35 to 44 year olds, it's £7,434. For 45 to 54 year olds, it's £13,318. And for 55 and over, it is £27,949. Now, whether this is just savings accounts or this takes into consideration stocks and shares ISAs or pensions, I don't know, but let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think this is true or not? And also, is it higher or lower than you expected? Now, it's always so important to remember on these videos, these are literally just averages. They are not medians. They are not your personal situation. This is just the average of the country. It'll make you feel behind in any way if you've got less than this, and if you've got more than this, great, but it's still just an average. Personally, I feel like these figures are being dragged up by London, but that could just be me. Let me know your opinion in the comments, and if you want more personal finance content just like this, hit that follow button over there.
Let's go. Like, I'm wondering if he said dragged up by London. I'm wondering if it's getting dragged down by London. We've all heard this saying, to who much is given, much is required. Whether you take it from the Bible, where it actually comes from originally, or whether you take it from Spider-Man, right? But the reality with this is, I felt slightly gutted because I fall into the 35 to 44 bracket, and I was like, how comes there was a dip? How comes them youngers, those 25 to 34 are saving more? In terms of how real this is, or how much I feel this may connect to the actual numbers and the age brackets, I think as long as all of the numbers are above zero, is a better story than what the mainstream media are putting out, because the mainstream media will tell you every single month, in every single way, on every single day, that it's a cost of living crisis and nobody's saving anything. And the reality is, we all know that's not the truth, because someone bought an Aston Martin yesterday, someone bought a Lamborghini yesterday, someone bought a Range Rover yesterday, and that's just the way life works. And it doesn't work like that because, oh, there's some of those people that are rich and, oh, there's all these other people that are poor. It's not because of that. It's because of what's actually broken down in a book called The Millionaire Next Door, excuse me, written by Stanley and Danko, which basically clearly articulates that most millionaires do not look anything like the millionaires you are presented or touted around on mainstream media and think millionaires look like. So when you start to understand that, you start realizing, well, hold on a minute, people have got money. So I don't think London are dragging this up. I think London might even be pulling it down, because a lot of what happens in London, yes, people have bigger salaries, but also people have a lot bigger expenses. Now, you can let me know in the comments below what you think, because I'm interested in actually like getting to an idea of whether this is actually real. Now, the interesting thing that did stand out to me about this is the group that was taken as the youngest group, the 18 to 24 group. They are literally saving less than £500 a month. Now, when you think of it like that, it sounds like £500 a month. That is a lot of money, but the reality is that's only £6,000 per year. And another big question in my mind is, what are those people who are older than 45 to 54, or even in that 45 to 54 bracket? What are they saving for? That's the whole, like, that's the question that came up in my head, because the older you get, the more wisdom you get, I believe, generally. And as a result, the more you start realizing that life is short, right? And for most of us, it's even shorter than we thought it was going to be. So when you realize that, guess what happens? You start realizing, you know, saving for saving's sake doesn't make much sense. And you start doing more, I would say, adventurous things with your savings, such as investing, or such as, you know, purchasing assets that will produce their own levels of income. So that's of interest to me. Now, am I surprised that the 45 to 54 and the 55 plus age brackets are actually increases upon everyone else? No, I'm not. Why? Because typically, if you're in that generation where you're 45 and older, you've gone through an experience where certain assets were simpler. I'm not going to use the word easier because I don't think it was easier, but certain assets were simpler for you to acquire. So for example, you know, in the 80s, I believe Margaret Thatcher introduced the right to buy. So even someone coming from a working class background, or, you know, a subpar background, would have had financially a better opportunity to buy a house. And obviously if they bought a house, you know, things like the market increasing the value of that house could potentially add value, add net worth to that individual, which would give them a better opportunity at moving up the social hierarchy. And by, by moving up the social hierarchy, what I mean is by going from lower class to middle class, from middle class to upper class, and whatever else have you, just by virtue of the simplicity that was available then. Now, we also have, and this is me just getting property specific because that's the field that I know the most in light of these conversations. Also, we had in the 90s, we had the self-certify era. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know what the self-certify era was, that was the time where the buy-to-let mortgage first came out. And because it had first came out, what happened is the market allowed people to certify themselves. So you didn't have to say, oh, this property is going to make this amount of money, and they didn't have to check or anything like that. And you didn't have to say, oh, my job makes me this amount. Like, none of that was, it was part of the picture. When the self-certified era was around in the 90s, what would happen is you'd walk into a mortgage broker's and just say to the mortgage broker, I want to buy this house. I need this amount of money to borrow, and here's my deposit. And they would basically say, can you sign here to certify yourself that you can make the payments every single month on this mortgage? And a lot of people bought properties. Now, just in fairness, because if I don't share this side of it, people will say, oh, Samuel, you didn't talk about the other side. The other side of that is what happened in 2008, 2009. And what happened in 2008, 2009, known as the global credit crisis, was a result partly of the self-certified movement, not self-certification in and of itself, but aspects and elements of what came across or what came with that era. Okay. So when people are able to just say by themselves, yes, I can buy a property. Yes, I'm good for it. Yes, I will pay every month. And nobody puts any specific checks and balances in. Going back to what I said earlier, yes, it's simpler to buy property, but something comes alongside with that. And what comes alongside with that is obviously the myriad of people who don't really have a real financial education. And as a result, they just think because they have the access to acquire that they have enough financial education. And as a result, they go and acquire just like everyone else is acquiring, and then later find out they have no idea what they're doing. So fast forward to 2008, 2009, after the self-certified movement, the self-certification movement and era, you have a whole bunch of people who bought properties in that self-certification era, but had no idea on what a financial balance sheet of a property needed to look like in order for them to not end up in such a dismal position. And as a result, in 2008, 2009, global credit crisis, what basically simply happens is the banks start failing, i.e. they can't keep up with their debts. So they go and say, we're closing down. And if they're closing down, they need their money back from all of the lenders, all of the people that took these mortgages. And all of these people that took these mortgages can't pay those mortgages back, because in some cases, this is super scary, the value of the house is not as much as the value of the loan. That's called negative equity. So lots of people went through that experience. In other cases, these were investment properties. So it wasn't about how much the value was. It was about the income on the house was actually less than the debt owed on the house on the monthly basis. So in those predicaments, that's where you've got someone who's needing to pay £900 every single month for the mortgage, but the income they're making in rent is like £700 or £800 every single month. So they're topping up with their salary the actual mortgage on that investment property. Now, you imagine someone who's in a position like that with 4 properties, 5 properties, 6 properties. You've got 6 properties, all of them you're owing £800 every single month in terms of the mortgage payment, and all of them you're adding an extra £100 every single month. So that's £600 out of your pocket from your job. Now, some people will read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad written by Robert Kiyosaki and say, oh no, that makes sense because I've got an asset, so I can still pay out of my pocket. Yeah, but that's not how it works. You know, if it's an asset, it should be paying for itself and bringing you money. Okay, it shouldn't be something that you are actually still shouldering the burden. Now, if you have to shoulder the burden for a month or two because a few things happen to you, then that's different. Now, if you look at that example I've just given you, and now let's turn on the fire, the gasoline, because that's what basically happened in 2008, 2009. And what happens if those lenders say, hold on a minute, we're increasing the interest rate? What happens if people aren't stuck in fixed interest mortgages, right? A fixed interest mortgage just basically means you know exactly how much you're going to pay every single month. But if you go into a standard variable rate, you go into a situation where now they're like, well, hold on a minute, because we're about to fail as a bank, we need to increase the interest rate. It's no longer 6%, it's going to go to 8%, 9%, 10%. What can happen for many people is that can close to double their mortgage payment each month. So instead of them having to pay the £800 on these 6 properties, they now have to pay, let's say, £1,000 or £1,200 every single month. Let's go with £1,000 because it's a simpler number. So now they've got to pay £1,000 on these 6 properties. That's £6,000 across their portfolio. And previously they were only generating £700 on each property. So now they have to add £300 to each property. £300 times 6 properties is £2,400. This is where the problems start to arise. Is it £2,400? 300 times 6, no, it's £1,800, right? So that's an additional £1,800 that this person has to take from their employment revenue and put that on top of the £700 being paid by all of their tenants. And that's if their tenants all stay, because their tenants are going to be going through the same financial waylay. And this is effectively why things can be so challenging. So if you ask me, do I believe that the older age groups, the 45 and up, 55 and up, are going to be saving a lot more? Yes, I do, because they lived through an era where it was much more simpler in order to acquire assets. So as a result, with less financial education, with less financial wherewithal, with less specialist education, they would have been able to acquire and accumulate assets which can benefit them massively right now. So if they bought houses and paid those mortgages down, or even if they didn't pay those mortgages down, but those mortgages ticked over, now, 20 years later, 30 years later, 15 years later, those same mortgages can be paying them, which allow them to have savings of these kind of amounts. Whereas obviously the younger generations have to solely, in most cases, rely on their employment or their side hustle. Well, I don't know. You let me know, whatever age bracket you're in as it pertains to this video, what your thoughts are in the comments below. I'm actually really, really keen on seeing what you guys think, because I only get to look at my position when I look at this, and obviously the information I know as it pertains to property, real estate, and investing and wealth creation. But I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about this? What's your position? What's your story? Have you gone through the noughties where you were able to self-certify? Did you buy properties during that period? And what did it look like? Are you someone who's just coming up now? You never even heard about the self-certification and this is all enlightening to you. What's your view? I'd love to know in the comments below. As I usually say, if you got value from this video, you know what to do. Like, comment, and subscribe. Side by side with that, I always tell you, because I believe it, small keys open up big doors, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Good day, God bless. Let's go.
Small keys open big doors.